Tonight's story feels like something straight out of a reality show, except this time, the emotions are real, the tension is real, and the truth, well, that might depend on who you ask. It all begins with Taylor Frankie Paul, a name that has become impossible to ignore in recent years. From viral TikTok moments to stepping into the spotlight on The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, Taylor built a world where friendship, love, and a little bit of chaos blended into something fans couldn't stop watching. And right at the center of her personal story stood Dakota Mortensen. Their relationship? Let's just say it hasn't exactly been a straight line. More like a roller coaster, the kind where you're laughing one second, screaming the next, and somehow still wanting another ride. People close to them always described their connection as intense, not just love, but passion, history, and a bond that kept pulling them back together even when things got complicated. And things definitely got complicated. Recently, whispers started turning into headlines. Stories began circulating about a heated moment between Taylor and Dakota, one of those nights where emotions run high, words get tangled, and everything feels bigger than it really is. According to some reports, the evening started off normal, just two people spending time together, maybe trying to reconnect, maybe trying to figure things out, like they've done so many times before. But then something shifted. The conversation reportedly turned toward the past, old relationships, old feelings, old memories that have a funny way of showing up at the worst possible time. You know how it is. One small comment can open the door to 100 unresolved emotions. And suddenly, the mood changed. Voices may have gotten louder, feelings may have gotten hurt, and just like that, what started as a simple night turned into something much more intense. Now here's where the story gets complicated. Some accounts suggest things became more physical than emotional, that in the middle of the argument, actions replaced words. Others, however, paint a completely different picture, one where Dakota may not have been entirely innocent either. Two sides, two stories, and somewhere in between, the truth. What makes this even more emotional is the idea that their child was nearby during the moment. And suddenly, this isn't just about drama anymore. It's about real life, real responsibility, and real consequences. But then comes the part that feels almost human. Because after the tension, after the argument, after everything, there was reportedly an apology. And if you've ever been in a relationship that's a little messy, a little passionate, a little "we'll figure it out tomorrow," you know exactly what that means. Sometimes love doesn't end with a fight. Sometimes it pauses, takes a breath, and tries again. And that's exactly what seemed to happen. The next day, the story continues. Another meeting, another attempt. Maybe a chance to fix things, or at least understand them better. But once again, emotions stepped back into the room. More disagreements, more tension. And this time, the aftermath left people asking even more questions. Friends got involved, observations were made, and eventually the situation became serious enough that authorities were contacted to understand what had really happened. From there, everything changed. Suddenly, it wasn't just a private relationship moment anymore. It became public conversation. Different insiders began sharing what they believed happened. Some stood firmly by Dakota's side, suggesting he had been hurt. Others defended Taylor, saying the situation wasn't as one-sided as it appeared. And just like that, the internet did what it always does. It picked sides. Fans, followers, and viewers started debating. Was this a misunderstanding blown out of proportion, or was it something deeper that had been building for a long time? Meanwhile, behind the scenes, things were shifting in a big way. Production connected to The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives reportedly hit pause. Cast members began questioning whether they wanted to continue. Producers, on the other hand, were trying to hold everything together because, let's be honest, moments like this bring attention, and attention is everything in reality TV. But here's where the story takes an almost ironic twist. Right as all of this unfolds, Taylor is preparing for a brand new chapter, stepping into the spotlight once again, this time in a way no one expected, becoming the face of The Bachelorette, a show built entirely around love, around finding the one, around starting fresh. And suddenly, people are asking, how does someone move from real-life relationship chaos into a televised journey for romance? Is it a fresh start, a distraction, or maybe, just maybe, it's proof that life doesn't wait for perfect timing? Because the truth is, Taylor's story isn't just about headlines or rumors. It's about something much more relatable. It's about love that doesn't always go smoothly. It's about relationships that don't fit into a neat little box. It's about trying, failing, apologizing, and sometimes trying again. And Dakota, he's not just a name in a headline either. He's part of that same story, a story filled with history, emotion, and moments that neither of them can fully erase. At the end of the day, what really happened that night may never be fully agreed upon. But what we do know is that their story has captured attention for a reason, because it feels real. Messy, emotional, unpredictable, real. And maybe that's why people can't stop watching, because somewhere in all of this, there's a reflection of relationships we've all seen, felt, or even experienced ourselves. So now the question becomes, what happens next? Will this chapter close quietly, or will it follow them into the next stage of their lives? Will Taylor's journey forward bring clarity or more questions? And will Dakota remain part of that story or become a memory of what once was? One thing is certain, this isn't the end. It's just another twist in a story that keeps evolving, one moment, one emotion, and one unexpected turn at a time. And as everything continues to unfold, people will be watching, wondering, and waiting to see what happens next. Because when love, drama, and real life collide like this, you just can't
when it
look
feels
away.
like the story might finally slow down, it doesn't. Because situations like this don't simply fade away overnight. They linger in conversations, in memories, and especially in the quiet moments when everything else goes still. For Taylor Frankie Paul, the days that followed weren't just about headlines or public opinion. They were about reflection, about replaying moments in her mind, about asking herself questions no one else could answer. What really went wrong? Could things have been handled differently? And maybe the hardest question of all, what happens now? At the same time, Dakota Mortensen was navigating his own side of the storm, because while the world was busy choosing sides, he was left dealing with the aftermath in real life. And here's the thing people often forget. Behind every trending story, there are real emotions involved, not just anger or frustration, but also confusion, regret, and sometimes even longing. Because no matter how intense things get, it's not always easy to just switch off feelings, especially when history runs deep. Friends close to both of them reportedly began stepping in, not to fuel the drama, but to calm it down, encouraging space, encouraging clarity, encouraging something that often feels impossible in emotional moments: perspective. And slowly, something interesting began to happen. The noise started to separate from the truth. Some of the early stories, they didn't seem as clear anymore. Details didn't line up perfectly. New versions surfaced, and suddenly, what once sounded certain became uncertain. It's like trying to piece together a puzzle where every person is holding a different piece, and no one can see the full picture. Meanwhile, the spotlight didn't move. If anything, it grew even brighter, because now people weren't just talking about what happened, they were watching what would happen next, especially with The Bachelorette right around the corner. And this is where things take on a completely different energy, because stepping into a journey built on romance, connection, and new beginnings right after such an emotional chapter, that's not just bold, that's complicated. Imagine trying to open your heart to someone new while pieces of the past are still quietly sitting in the corner. It's like trying to start a new love story while still holding on to the last page of the previous one. And yet, there's also something undeniably hopeful about it, because maybe this isn't about running away from the past. Maybe it's about learning from it, growing through it, and deciding that no matter how messy things have been, the future still deserves a chance. As for Dakota, his role in this story feels like a question mark that hasn't been answered yet. Will he step back completely? Will he speak out more? Or will he remain part of the narrative in ways no one expects? Because if there's one thing this story has proven, it's that nothing is predictable. Not the emotions, not the reactions, and definitely not the outcomes. There's also the impact on the secret lives of Mormon wives, which now finds itself in an uncertain place. A show built on friendships and shared lives suddenly facing real-life tension that can't just be edited or scripted. Cast members feeling unsure, production trying to find balance, and fans wondering if what they'll see next will feel different, knowing what's happened behind the scenes. Because once reality becomes too real, it changes everything. But maybe the most fascinating part of all of this is how human it feels. Not perfect, not polished, not neatly wrapped with a clear ending. Just real people dealing with real emotions in a very public way. And somewhere in between the drama and the headlines, there are moments we don't see. Quiet conversations, unspoken thoughts, decisions being made not for the cameras, but for themselves. So where does the story go from here? Maybe toward healing, maybe toward distance, or maybe, in a twist no one sees coming, toward understanding. Because sometimes the most unexpected endings come from the most complicated beginnings. And as everything continues to unfold, one thing remains certain. This story isn't just about what happened, it's about what it means. For love, for growth, and for the idea that even in the middle of chaos, there's always a chance to rewrite the next chapter. And right now, that next chapter is waiting to be written.